are an Ironman!
This podcast is sponsored by Velo Yellow, providing bike transport to events across Europe. Website link available in the podcast description.
Welcome to episode 67, and today I'm joined by April Yoho. April, you're very welcome onto the podcast.
Thank you, Mickey. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
April, you and I have been introduced to each other by the one and only Lars running. Lars has actually sent a few athletes my way, so I can assure you he's not actually getting commission for any of this, but he's certainly stepping up to the plate with regards to sending me great guests. So I'm excited to have a chat with you. We've been kind of in touch with each other in preparing for the podcast, and we have a fantastic timeline to work through with your triathlon journey. But let's have a wee chat about things before triathlon. So what was it like for you growing up?
Yeah, so I mean, I live in the UK, but I grew up in the US. So I am UK based, but people are always like, well, you don't sound very British. No, I'm not by birth. So I grew up in the US playing sports, and I played quite a lot of sports from a young age. I was what they call like a 3-season athlete, so always playing a sport no matter what the season was in school. Football, proper football, meaning soccer, was my primary sport, basketball, and ice hockey. And to get in shape for those sports, I was challenged a lot by the coaches and the competition to be, starting in the varsity team, etc. So to do so, I learned to start doing things like running, because I think when you're a kid, you're like, I don't want to just go for a 5K run or even a mile. I know the mile fitness test in school is probably the most hated PE activity ever. And it was for me. So I was about 16 years old, and I threw myself on a treadmill to just start running 10 minutes a day. And I did it every day. And then that increased to 25 minutes. I got stuck there for a while. And then all of a sudden that opened me up to running an hour. And by the time I was 17, I was running about 7 miles in an hour, about 3-4 times a week. And I had no idea what was happening. Like, I just was running as I could. And a friend of mine said to me, you should go run the half marathon that's coming up next week. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you can do it. I'm like, I've only ever ran 7 miles at a time. He's like, you can do it. So we're sitting in class, and that was on a Wednesday. And on that Wednesday, I was already scheduled after school to go to the gym and train. So I got on a treadmill. I did a half marathon on a treadmill on a Wednesday afternoon. I think I drank some water. There's nothing related to gels back then. And I did it. And then I got into school. Then the Thursday, they said, I've signed up for the half marathon. He goes, awesome, cool. I'll cheer you on. And so I told my dad I was doing a half marathon, and my dad's like, okay. And so he drove me to the start line. I had no idea what to wear, what to do. I think my dad gave me like a bandana to hold my hair back, and it was 10 degrees Celsius and I was cold. He goes, no, you want to be in shorts and a tank top. And I did. I ran a 1:41 half marathon. Brilliant. Again, no concept of what that meant. And that was really my endeavor into running. So that's really how I started actually running as an adult, or near adult at that point.
That's unbelievable. Just like a comment from a mate, and you just thought, well, let's go.
Do it. I mean, when you're 18, you do stupid stuff, and your body can do those things. I didn't take on a gel at all. I don't think I took on any water during the half marathon. I may have sipped a little, but no, the gels weren't a thing back in those days.
So after the half marathon, then, what caught your eye, or what notion took you towards triathlon?
Yeah, I think, the running kept going for many years. And then I would say probably 6 or 7 years after that, as I hit adulthood, I'd always kind of had a mountain bike. And I had a friend that was like, you should get a road bike. Getting a road bike will make you faster on the mountain bike. So I bought a road bike. And that was a whole new experience, wearing Lycra all the time and cycling around cars. And then I started liking road biking so much, I didn't really go back to mountain biking. So this was a really slow progression. I wasn't a particularly great cyclist, but then I started doing some cycling challenges with friends. And And that transpired into actually 2009. So I'd probably owned my road bike for probably a year or two before 2009. And I got invited to go volunteer at the Ironman Louisville finish line as a catcher. And I'm like, what's an Ironman catcher? And I'd heard of Ironman. And I thought, literally crazy people do these things. And I'm like, I'm never going to do this. And I stood at the finish line and I caught the finishers, people finishing in like 9.5, 10.5 hours. And it was really exciting, but I was like, there's no way am I ever going to do this. This is crazy speak. And that was really my first physical in-person view of it. And it humbled me. It really scared me because I was like, why would you do that to yourself? And that was really how I got introduced into the Ironman stage.
Let's spend a little bit of time just exploring the catcher, because the Ironman catcher thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is it something that's exclusive to the American version of Ironman? It's something that we don't really see here in Europe.
I think it's something Ironman used to do a lot of, meaning I think it was a thing. So as a catcher, you were given, so if everyone ever has seen an Ironman, it's branded by an organization, a company. So for example, I've done the Ironman in Copenhagen, and it was sponsored by KMD as the primary sponsor. So at the time in the 2000s, Ironman had it was Ford Ironman Louisville. So the Ford car company is actually based in Louisville, Kentucky, and they sponsored the Ironman. And I think they had the sponsorship for several years. So as part of the sponsorship, their name was on these towels. And as people crossed, you'd put the towel over them, hand them the towel, and then walk them off. So I haven't seen that since 2009, to be honest with you. Now they have staff that are make sure you don't fall over, but there's no actual catchers per se anymore.
Cool. That's interesting. Something that may have just fizzled out then naturally then as the brand has sort of gathered its own momentum and has become its own self-sufficient financial machine that it clearly is. So as a line catcher then in Louisville, that kind of whetted your appetite, I suppose, and maybe started the cogs clicking about inside the brain.
I like doing spontaneous things. So I think it kind of was like, well, maybe I'll think about a triathlon. Maybe. And I was aware of other distances. And I think when people think about triathlon, people go straight into Ironmans. And I think it's good to build into it and be gradual and be a bit more full of intent, because there's a lot of mechanics that go into the three sports. And it wasn't, it was a couple years later when I moved to Colorado. I was at work and I said, oh yeah, I was a finish line catcher in Ironman. And my colleague's like, oh, I do triathlon. She was a middle-aged woman, married, no children, but did this crazy 3-sport event. She's like, oh, I would never do an Ironman, but I do sprints at Olympic distance. And she just seemed human to me, and it made it human versus these superstar athletes. And I said, you know what, I'll think about a triathlon. And then I was out one night with a friend, and a spontaneous bet happened, along with, if you remember, Groupon, the site that you could buy discounted adventures and whatnot. They had a triathlon in Colorado. It was actually near one of the ski resorts near Breckenridge, Colorado. And it was half price. And I thought, okay, this is a great idea. Yet again, spontaneous decision. At that point, I had a few months to train. But then I realized I made a commitment to something. So I then wasn't obviously the next day, thankfully. I had a little bit more thoughtfulness in that. But then I decided I'm just going to do this and I'm going to try it. So I signed up for it. It was a modified Olympic, but it was effectively an Olympic, except the swim, I believe, was 800 meters instead of the normal 1.5K.
You had your bike at that point and you were in the Rocky Mountains. Is that right?
Yeah, in altitude. So the race actually took place at 9,000 vertical feet, which I don't know what that is in meters. What is that, about 3,000 meters?
Yeah. So presumably your bike legs would have been coming on rightly, because there wouldn't have been too many flat roads around where you were cycling, I would have thought. Maybe I'm wrong.
Weird. Well, it's interesting. I had to go up into the ski resort area. The road we were on was, I would call, false flats. so you had momentum, but you weren't going up a mountain. And they did tout it as like a beginner's triathlon. But I had been living in Boulder, Colorado at that point. So when you live in Boulder, you're training at altitude already, so you're quite acclimated to that. But also, I had spent some time cycling around Boulder, and that meant going up into the Flatirons, into the hills. And I had friends that were cycling around the big like 14ers in the mountains and all the mountain passes. So I had already been looking at longer cycle distances, like there's the famous one called the triple bypass. And I thought, okay, this is insane. But, I started getting interested. So I had been spending more and more time cycling up mountain passes effectively. And it was character building. It was character building.
When you mentioned there's a cycle route called the triple bypass, is it because you could end up requiring a triple bypass?
Yes.
Or was there 3 passes?
It does go through 3 passes, but yes, you could require medical support along the route.
Significant medical intervention.
You're up at like 10,000 feet and air's thinner. You start getting dizzy. It is quite a hard ride just because of the altitude you climb on the bike as well. It's all on road, but yeah, it's intense.
The other thing then that I'm quite interested to ask is, what about the water temperature up there in that altitude? Because that's bound to be a bit nippy.
It is. And I, being the novice athlete, I actually didn't know how to swim very well, ironically. Now, I thought I could swim. So I grew up from a young age in water, at beaches, in the oceans, but I was also a very avid scuba diver from a very young age. So I was comfortable in water. I just didn't really know how to swim in a swim lane in a pool. So I did swim a bit. I did buy a wetsuit on discount. And I think I threw myself in the local reservoir called Boulder Reservoir at the time. But it was like 30 some odd degrees in the water. I was melting. And I literally got in the water, got wet in the wetsuit. I was like, yep, that's fine. What could go wrong? It's only 800 meters. And I think at the time I was probably only swimming like 15, 20 minutes at a time in a swimming pool because I just didn't understand the mechanics or the requirements of how the swim impacts the bike and the run. So yeah, the lake we swam in was mild, but I remember probably half the athletes getting in had wetsuits. The other half were just in their tri-suits. And I went in, and my dad and I couldn't figure out, because I think I was in like the 4th wave, and it was a mass start in each wave. And when I saw the first few waves, it's like, why is everyone stopping like 20 meters from the start? Like everyone's head popped up. It was cold. It was a cold mountain lake. And I'll be honest, there were probably more beginners there than actual experienced triathletes. So all of us got hit with the cold shock. None of us had prepared for it. So it was quite a shock.
That's what we would refer to locally here as brain freeze. I assume then that kind of where you eat your ice cream too fast and you get that cold head. Yeah, an all too familiar experience for us. The local lake that we would train in Oma is pretty cold most of the year. It does heat up to sort of 18, 19, 20 degrees possibly in the summer, but this time of year you're looking at maybe 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. So it's Baltic, absolutely freezing. Interested, just you mentioned scuba. I did a bit of scuba back in the day. You may have made the same mistake as I did and thinking, well, sure, I'll just rock up in I already have a wetsuit. This is going to be simple. I'll be nice and toasty in my 6mm neoprene hood and the whole bit. Yeah. And then you find out that you need a special bloody wetsuit for this triathlon carry-on.
I did buy a special wetsuit. I bought it on offer on some website. And it's like, I just remember my shoulders aching and feeling like I was in a sausage suit. And again, technology has come along so far since then. But I just bought something that was cheap. But I kind of assumed, well, I go diving in cold water. How hard could it be to swim in it? It's hard. It shocks you. So
the big difference, of course, with swimming and scuba diving is you don't even need to be able to swim, really. You need to be able to sink to go scuba diving. And the opposite is true for the triathlon. So what about that first triathlon? How did it go for you? Did you get round it okay? Was there any hiccups?
Well, it's actually interesting. My dad came to watch me race. My dad is a big athletic sports fan, loves sports, loves athletics. And my dad used to run for years. So he came to support me. And it was really funny because we couldn't figure out, like, it was, both of us were like, what's going on here? I got through the swim. I think I swam 800 meters in about 20 minutes. They actually lost my chip time. And I got out of the water, and my dad was there when I got out. And he goes, how was it? And one word came out of my mouth on repeat. It begins with an F and rhymes with duck. And,
okay, I think I know that word.
it was on repeat. It was so cold, I couldn't breathe. I was overwhelmed. And then I got on the bike. I was quite comfortable. We did have shoes. Remember having like goo shoes. I think they were pretty fashionable at the time. And then I got through the bike, did okay. I just had a normal road bike, no aero bars. Got off that and then went for the 10K run. And I hurt, and I hadn't really practiced transitioning from a bike to a run. And that was, again, a new kettle of fish. So I got through the run, finished fairly strong, and then turned around and said, I want to do it again. And I literally did a full Olympic about a month later in a different location in Colorado. So I got pretty hooked pretty fast.
You got the bug very quickly. Interesting that you started off at the Olympic distance as well. I guess that was just what was available to you in your locality.
Yeah. Well, I think also, I mean, an Olympic, bike-wise, it was a modified Olympic. So the swim was shorter. The run, I could run 10K. And then the bike, I want to say the bike might have been 20 miles. I have it written in a spreadsheet somewhere. I keep all my races in a spreadsheet. But I think the bike was only 20 miles. So a 20-mile bike I did easily. A 10K run was nothing. So 800 meters swim survival, like how bad could that have gone? Well, it went pretty bad. But, I think knowing what I know now, like I learned a lot that day. I learned a lot.
It wouldn't be long then before you decided to up things. So the natural progression starts to kick in here, and you're now thinking about tackling a 70.3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was after that next race that I did the month after that. I decided that a half Ironman would be a great idea because it's only double what I just did, and I hadn't really trained. So if I actually prepare, I think I can do this. And I also used it as an excuse to visit my family. We often pick races and locations we want to go visit. And so I chose Ironman, it's Ironman Haines City in Haines City, Florida. And that was a half Ironman. And I think I had about August to May. So that would have been 7 months to train. And I signed up, and I used it as an excuse to go see my mom and my stepdad and my brother as well. So I made it a family visit.
And your first half distance then, was it a big thing in comparison to the Olympic? I found it quite difficult because I had gone from sprint distance only to half, so it was a fairly significant jump, but I guess maybe not as bad for you. How did you find the whole experience?
I think I didn't understand heart rate changes at that point. So it was a pretty okay jump. What got me was the fueling. Also, when I raced in Haines City, wetsuits weren't allowed. So, which is very common in a lot of US races because of the heat and the water temperatures. Unlike the UK, very few people in the US own wetsuits, actually. So I had actually been living in the UK. I'd moved to the UK in the time from my last race to signing up to this one. So I had a lot of life changes, so I had to adapt. So I was swimming in a pool, and I thought, well, if I can swim in a pool, how hard is it going to be to swim in a lake in Florida? No wetsuit. It went okay. I was concerned about the cutoffs. I think I made the 50-minute swim cutoff by a minute and a half. So I think I did a 48:30 on my first swim. And it was okay. I just trucked along. And then when I got on the bike, it was a very flat course. I rented a bike that was the wrong size. And again, trucked along. And then trucked along in the 30-degree heat in Florida to finish the half marathon part of it. So it was a big deal for me, but I just had to hold on. And that was the mentality I had at the time.
It sounds like you've got a great attitude with regards to, whenever you pick something to do, you'll just go and do it. You'll adapt to whatever comes up. You'll make a change. You'll get the wetsuit. You'll forget about the wetsuit. You'll pick up a bike. You'll ditch a bike. You'll do this, that, and that. We'll try some goo bars. So you're kind of very flexible and adaptive. Would that be a fair thing to say about you, April?
Yeah, I think it plays into what I do for my day job. And I think with triathlon, You can prepare. It never goes right on race day. And people really beat themselves up over it. And I always say to people, like, what's the worst that can happen? You know, if you don't train properly, you won't make the cutoffs. That's probably the worst in my head. The other thing that could happen is you throw up, you have another bodily accident, or actually the second worst thing for me is you have a bike crash. So first for me is, you know, not making cutoffs. Second for me is having a bike crash. Everything else is just tertiary problems that you have to solve on the fly. And every race I've never had a race go perfectly as such. Actually, I've had some sprint distances that I've picked up for fun go well, because nothing can really go wrong in an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, a lot can, but it's minimal. When you start doing the longer distances, more can go wrong. So you have to learn to adapt. And my mother used to always tell me I was very resourceful, and it's played itself into my day-to-day life, and how and in the type of job I work in, but also in triathlon. And I can be as spot on with my training and my preparation. Something's going to go wrong on the day. Yeah,
absolutely. You talked briefly there just about moving from America to England. So that was in and around sort of 2013, 2014, wasn't it?
Yeah, about 2013.
And then you joined a tri club then in the UK. Was that your first club that you joined then? Were you kind of going solo up until that point?
I had been solo, and I think I found some training plans online, early doors potentially. It's the first time I joined a club, and clubs aren't. I didn't even think I even joined the club till 2014. So I'd been in the UK about a year and a half before I joined the club, and clubs just aren't a big thing in America. And it was one of the biggest changes I noticed was clubs are everywhere in the UK. You want to make friends, you need to join a club. I joined a run club sometime after that as well. I joined the triathlon club. They had a partnership with a local run club. But I made a ton of friends. It's actually interesting. It was a triathlon club, but man, we went out drinking every night. Like, not every night, sorry, on the weekends. Like, we would go out a lot. So we trained together. We would go to spin classes together, and then we'd go have a pint together. So it was an amazing mix of being social, making friends, and sticking to a regimented training schedule. When you have somewhere to be, it helps you show up.
It reminds me of the T-shirt. There's a great T-shirt that I've seen online which says some of my drinking partners have a skiing problem. You know, where the guys all go under the guise of a skiing holiday, but they're really there out for the lash. They're out for the pints and the crack.
Yep, absolutely.
It really is one of the best things about a club, you know, getting to meet people and you know, create friendships, and then there's a sort of a peer pressure thing too about turning up to each of the sessions, and it just helps with motivation. I think it's a positive thing in my book.
It is. It helps keep you accountable.
So you've joined the Tri Club, and that was 2014, 2015. Let's talk about 2015, because in 2015 you decided that you would make the jump to the full distance. I'll not reveal any more than that. Talk me through that first, the decision that you decided that you'll go for an Ironman, a full distance.
You know, it was. You talk about being in the club mentality, and there are people in the club. Again, they just look human. There was a person in the club. I'm not going to name any names. That is a pretty normal human, albeit a little bit, you know, a lot of the folks weren't like perfectly formed triathletes, and they're like, oh yeah, I've done an Ironman, or I've done 2 already, or I'm training for one. You know, people that are a little bit overweight or aren't the strongest, bestest athletes in the world. They're not professionals, you know, doing this for a living. They're doing it for fun. And I kind of thought, okay, I can do this. I mean, these are people I was cycling with on like medium or even just casual rides. Sometimes we're at spin club together. I'd swim with them in the pool, and I'm like, look, if I can swim at their pace or close to their pace, I could figure this out. And I, again, on a whim, out at the pub with a couple of the folks, and I said, well, I think I want to do an Ironman. And they're like, well, let's do it together. So I signed up for Ironman Canada that night after going out at the pub, and I was definitely not sober when that happened. And then I decided that there was another one I wanted to do. It was Ironman Louisville. So going back to the start of this, Ironman Louisville is where I was a finish line catcher. And I thought, I want to go back to where I first saw it. And my dad and my stepmom live in Louisville, Kentucky. So again, another way to see family and friends. So I signed up for Ironman Canada in the July, and then Ironman Louisville that took place in the October of 2015.
Look what happens whenever you join a triathlon club. It's
Look what
astonishing.
happens when I make rash decisions. Yes.
Yeah. The term that you're using, and I find it's lovely. The way you're talking about it, they're just human. I love how simple that is. It's a phrase that we're quite familiar with, but I've never heard it in this context before, and it makes so much perfect sense. Is this notion that any of us really could do this if we wanted to? I mean, if we put our mind to it, when you look around you and you see the people that are capable of doing it, why the hell not? I suppose that's kind of the message, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, talk me through your first Ironman then. How did it go?
So it's interesting. It was in Canada, and it was just took place in Whistler, and there are mountains. So yes, I expected mountains. I think the first 10K of the race was all up. So actually, let's back this up to the swim because it starts with the swim. The week prior to going out, it was 30 some odd degrees. They didn't think it was going to be a wetsuit swim. And at this point I did panic because I had been preparing in a lake with a wetsuit in just outside of Windsor. I was ready. I'd been cycling with friends, but I was nervous. I was nervous about what to expect, what to happen. And the week before was like 30 or 33 degrees in Canada. They were getting forest fires and they're talking about canceling the swim. And then it just cooled down before we got there, enough that they allowed wetsuits for the swim. I flew out with a few friends. So we had rented a place together, made a bit of a vacation about it. But my first faux pas was putting a lot of time in Canada on before the race. So I didn't get to whitewater rafting or do anything super fun because I was afraid of getting injured or hurting myself, or I treated myself a bit like porcelain. So that was my first mistake. So I would always say, get there a couple days early to acclimate, but really spend the time after to enjoy the area you're going to. So thankfully the weather calmed down. The morning of the race, I was nervous. Get in the water, and I swam comfortably, I think is one way to phrase it. I was pretty comfortable. During the swim, the heavens opened and it was torrential downpour. Now, this being Canada, there are bears and all the spectators are standing out in the absolute torrential rain. And then they had to do a 2-mile walk back to the village because they didn't have buses or anything for the spectators. So the spectators had it worse than us. It was absolutely torrential rain. I picked up my T1 bag, got on the bike. I had like a really thin jacket on. And then we have a 10-kilometer climb up a hill in torrential rain. And that was fine. And then I remember the downhill and I'm just shaking and I wanted to quit. And I was like, I expected Ironmans to be hot. Like I thought of Hawaii, I thought of Louisville, I thought of anywhere else in the world other than where I was. It's July and I'm shivering. I was coming down the hill and I just said, I could pull off right here. I could pull off and just be done with this crap. And I kept going and I started to warm up, and it was just a mental conversation with myself. And I remember being on the bike and the woman in front of me, it's torrential rain, started peeing on the bike. And I moved to the side and I'm going, could this get any worse right now? Like I'm getting peed on, torrential rain, and I'm shivering. Like, why am I doing this? And everyone's probably like, why were you doing it? And at that point, I kind of rode on the course, and it was downhill and then a big flat area. I said, you know what? It's going to be fine. Just ride it out. I rode it out. It dried up. And then it was a bit of a climb up the hill. And then at about a mile 110, a bear crossed the road and they had to stop us to allow the bear to cross. I said, screw you. Nope, I'm going. I am not at mile 110 and the bear is not going to stop this. So at that point I became determined. And I got to T2, got on the run, and I learned, and I think one of the biggest facts that really helped me in my head was knowing that only 10% of Ironman finishers run the whole marathon. So I was prepared to walk, run, and see how I did. And actually that race was the race where the most monumentous sign was held for me, not for me, but a stranger. They held, when your legs are tired, run with your heart. And that is something I've taken from every day on every race, because it always hurt and everyone's in pain. And I remember running in the race, and it was the first time I'd done a race where your name's on the bib. And there was this guy along the side. He was really hot. Like, go April, go April. And I'm like, oh my God, he knows my name. And I went, oh, duh, it's on my bib. So people just shouting your name and like little bits of motivation keep you going. So I got through it, finished, and I was so happy. I was really, really happy. And the lessons I learned from that is it's all mental. Ironman is literally a mental game and an eating game. And all you need to do is eat, and you need to have the mental fortitude to keep going. And that's it. The training is really important, but almost irrelevant at that point if you don't have the mental fortitude.
Brilliant stuff. The other thing that would help you get through the run as well is the idea of the bear that's still lurking in the background somewhere, just pre T2.
Points in the race when like a random person be like, by the way, bear ahead, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm running. Because there's bears on the course. You're running through like wooded footpaths and stuff. It was all paved, beautiful like surfaces. But yeah, there were bears. So yeah, it keeps you going.
Unbelievable. So your next stop was Louisville. It was probably going to be a more enjoyable race, certainly more support for you on a personal level with family and friends there. Was it a very, very different experience then to the Canada?
It was. So I had, my mother flew out. One of my best friends flew out from Boston as well. My dad was there, my stepmom was there, and my stepfamily. And this was an interesting race because my stepmom was a cancer survivor, still is. And I really wanted to do it in honor of her. Just something nice. And doing 2 in a year, doing 2 3 months apart, it took me a while to recover from the first one. And going into Louisville, again, water issues, blue algae scare. They weren't sure if the swim was going to go ahead. The swim went ahead, but the swim is interesting because about a quarter of it, if not a third, is upstream and the rest is downstream. So I had a super fast swim. So I wasn't worried about the swim in this race. I was like, I just got to survive that little bit upstream. Then I just have to float downstream. So I had a really strong swim, got out on the bike, and then I leveraged special needs at this race. So where Ironman lets you drop a bag of your own nutrition, socks, whatever you need. I stopped at special needs at this race and they lost my bag. So I faced losing my nutrition at an Ironman. I don't take on-course nutrition. There's 1,000 reasons why I don't. Number one is my body just doesn't take it and I can't train with it. And I remember stopping. They had an area on the course because you did 2 big laps around one area. My mom was there, my friend Scott. I stopped, I started crying. They lost my nutrition and my family screaming and about 50 other spectators like, keep going, keep going. And I'm like, right. So I'm sitting on the bike, pedaling away going, how do I overcome no food? And I'm at mile 70. So I did eat bananas. I had a few bits in my bag. I took a few things off the course. I just had to accommodate a lack of nutrition. So mentally I was a bit frazzled because that was my first like major race issue I think I've really ever had, like big one. Got onto the run and I just hurt. And I was tired, and mentally, I think I broke down on that one. Louisville's an interesting one. It was a 2-lap half marathon, so it just goes on. I saw a friend along the run, and she's like, April, and I just start crying. And for anyone that's never done an Ironman, you literally hit every emotion, especially on the bike. Like you're happy, then all of a sudden you're sad, and then you're scared, and like everything goes through your brain. It's a long day. It's a very emotional day. So at Louisville, I was just happy to be done with it. And I said, I'm never doing 2 Ironmans 3 months apart again. And I did it. It was done. I finished and I just wanted to sit. That's all I wanted to do when I got to that finish line. I was like, just sit. But yeah, it was a good day, but it was it was probably one of my harder Ironmans for a lot of reasons.
Hard and all as it was, again, we're seeing that grit and the determination for you just to overcome those obstacles, them hurdles, get on with it, get the thing done. And that's what you did. And I suppose you were out there on that particular day to show and to dedicate that race to your stepmom. So that would have certainly helped with the motivation. You also then had quite an incident, shall we call it, to overcome the following year when you were out cycling, which certainly threw a big spanner into the works. Tell us about that.
Yeah, in 2016, I'd actually won an entry into Roth that
Cool.
year for 2016. I thought, right, I'm going to do one Ironman, but I wanted to try challenge Roth because so many people raved about it in the atmosphere. So I got in. I was doing a training ride in April 2016. I got T-boned by a car just outside of Windsor on a pretty fast road. She turned into me. I was going straight. She went to turn and just didn't see me. It was, early evening where lights low enough. So I bullseyed her windscreen, did a little flip off the car and landed. And I remember emergency services coming up and they're like, "You're talking." And I was like, "Yes." I remember nothing in the 2 weeks after the accident. I had pretty bad concussion as well. So I had a lot of injuries. And to top it all off, I was taken to A&E and I was misdiagnosed. So I ended up having to piece my body together over a couple years via private healthcare and kind of on my own accord. So I obviously didn't do Roth that year. Everything was painful. And then it was a change in how I was going to actually, no, sorry, Roth was the next year, 2017. I'm getting my dates confused. I did do Copenhagen that year. But then I had to then face a lot of surgeries after that to get pieced back together again.
And tell me, did the thought ever cross your mind? Screw that. I nearly got killed there on the bike. So fuck the bike. I need to just maybe find something else because it certainly would pass through my brain if because that's a serious injury.
I had so many fears out on the road after that. If a car would pass, I would have like a flashback. I would stop. And I still get it till to this day. I mean, the benefit is today we have turbo trainers. And turbo trainers, I think I invested in another turbo trainer. I think I just spent more time on the turbo. I always joke between that accident and just being a triathlete in general, with all the niggles we get, it would be cheaper for me to do cocaine and take up drugs. And probably healthier on the body. Like I always joke about people are like, really? And I'm like, I think being healthy is detrimental sometimes, because I think realistically we're just pushing ourselves too much a lot. And but I think in that time I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about other ways to train. So I've had a couple shoulder surgeries. So how do we train in other ways? Sitting on a turbo, using strength training, and it helps when you have 3 sports you can train in others. And the invention of turbo trainers, and now with Zwift and Trainer Road and Training Peaks Virtual, you name the platform, Ruvi, you can get great experiences before race day. And I think actually that's one of the reasons why I always do an Ironman branded race. People complain they're expensive. I have done some non-Ironman branded for half Ironmans, but the roads are closed. It's not guaranteed. There are still incidences with cars I've experienced in races, but for the majority of the race, nobody's near you. And I've experienced too many close calls and crashes just amongst other athletes in a race that it does scare me. But it's a risk that I've accepted. I wear a helmet and literally pray that nothing happens. And sometimes that means not being as aggressive in a race, but your life is more important than a minute or a few seconds.
You mentioned there that you completed Copenhagen. So Copenhagen was completed in 2016. I'm interested to find out, was there much of a difference between the American scene and the European setup? Or did it feel familiar to you, or did it feel there's something a bit strange, or a bit weird, or a bit wacky, or wonderful about what's going on in Europe?
I think there's a cultural difference amongst these different places, in that in America and Canada, people are very rah, cheery. And like even doing races in the UK, shorter races, people are like clapping. Or even in Wales, like the American over-enthusiasm is very apparent in America. But what I loved about the European races is they go through villages, whereas in America, we don't really have villages, and the whole village comes out. So the benefit is, like when I did Austria and Klagenfurt, the villages, people are coming out. I remember like high-fiving little girls, and you're encouraging the next generation, which is phenomenal. But I think the Americans, the brand runs its things a little bit differently. The race is pretty much the same, but little things like when you finish in America, they give you a hat. a little running hat. And actually, some of my favorite running hats are the ones I've gotten at races. But I think for the most part, it's just cultural. And I think also when you're in Europe, one of the biggest differences, people just pee everywhere. Like, and I say that in the nicest way possible, like I do, on the bike, behind a tree. Like, people just don't, the nudity thing isn't as big of a deal. But I think just the personalities, people are quite good at cheering at an Ironman, but the difference on the bike course is huge, or the run course. I think actual villages and towns really come out and support the races better in Europe. Because they are shutting the roads, they seem quite supportive of them.
Ironman Austria, was there much of a similarity between it and your experience in the Rockies? That early triathlon, it kind of sounds to me that it would be a similar type landscape.
Very different, actually. Austria, Klagenfurt, has one of the most beautiful swims. The water is this beautiful emerald green. The lake in Colorado was brown. It was very much like swimming in the UK, like something we're used to. Klagenfurt was quite hilly. The first race I did was actually in the mountains, but on flatter roads. And then the run was flat in both. So I think they were actually very, very different races. The water was different. The atmosphere was different. I think every race I've done has been quite unique in many different ways. And I try to pick races in good locations for that purpose.
So you weren't satisfied that Austria would be the last. So you've decided then to sign up for Frankfurt.
Yes.
Frankfurt from your notes holds special significance. Talk us through the Frankfurt, the run up to Frankfurt, and the circumstances around that, and how that race came about.
So I think, just backing up into Austria a little bit, on the run, I had a great bike, a great swim. On the run, I had a complete stomach meltdown, which I think a lot of triathletes are familiar with. And I thought, I'm done here. I have got to nail this run. And I had actually changed coaches at this time as well. And getting a coach is one of the best things I've done, because I delegate my training schedule to someone else, and it's so much easier. It just takes a load off, and I can just deal with the important things. I got an email from Ironman, as you do. It was the European Championships. Here's a priority, one of the first entries, basically. Not a special entry, not discounted at all, but one of the first ones. I said, yeah, absolutely. I spoke to my coach. He's like, yeah, go for it. And I thought, I'm going to do it better than I've ever done my other races before. And as I signed up for that, I was finishing up a house renovation, because why add one thing to the mix? And then my mother passed very suddenly in December before that race, so about 6 months before. So it became an outlet for me to get away from my day-to-day. My day-to-day wasn't where I wanted to be in my life, and it was my escape. And it was really good to do something that my mother would be proud of. So it's an emotional thing, because my mother always encouraged me to play sports. She never said, you're a girl, you can't do anything. She always said to me, you're April, go do it. I got to play with the boys as a kid growing up. I play boys football, boys ice hockey. So she died pretty suddenly from cancer. And it's actually interesting. Right after she died, actually the same year after Frankfurt, there's an organization in America called fcancer.org, and I raised a bunch of money for them. I didn't race in their kit at Frankfurt. I raced in it in one of the 70.3s in Austria. But so many people along the course were like, yeah, F cancer. So I know it's not always probably the nicest, most child appropriate name to have on your kit, but they do a lot of great stuff. And I think it's something that definitely runs through my head, and was a big motivator in the race. So it was great to raise money for other races, support that organization, but getting through Frankfurt was hard with what was going on in my life. And it was great that I finished, because I think a lot of people can relate to when a parent passes quite suddenly. You have to clean out their house, you have their possessions. For me, I had to go back to the US. So that's a race where I had a lot of adversity, but was really proud of completing and getting through that.
Yeah, it's nothing really prepares you for losing a parent. My mother passed with cancer as well. at a time whenever I had originally joined the triathlon scene way back in like 2015, but then whenever Mum took ill, I kind of took a sidestep from that, just trying to deal with everything. And then after she passed away, I kind of went off the rails for a wee while, and then got back into the tri club. But it was definitely something that was, as you say, a great way to escape the loss or the thoughts or whatever it was. So you go and you kind of do something, you throw yourself into something. So yeah, I would certainly echo let's just say the word fuck cancer, So good on you. And great strength to be able to even go ahead with that race. I guess it holds a very special place in your heart.
Absolutely. And I think also as life progresses, changes in life as well. A lot of women have kids. I've hit the change in life of menopause, and that's presenting new issues in my life. And it's hard because your body's changing, especially as a female, that probably a lot of men don't experience or understand. But I'm now using my training as a way to escape my day-to-day job, my normal life, my health issues, which do change how I have to train. But I think it's part of growth, again, the human element of this, and understanding like what works, what doesn't, and just giving yourself that mental health space that you need, that you might not get in a day-to-day because of the job, because of your life changing and everything else around it.
One of the other things that we were speaking about, April, before we hit the record button, was that as a sort of a nearly by accident, you have found yourself in a place where you're able to actually reach out and help with females dealing with female things and helping them to overcome obstacles, life hurdles, and be somewhat of a beacon for motivating ladies to get into sport. Do you want to maybe talk a wee bit about that and how that has sort of come about?
Yeah, I think because of my day job, I work in tech and I get to blog a lot, which is quite a privilege. I get to teach people tech. I get to share my knowledge. And I decided to start a triathlon blog. And admittedly, it hasn't been updated much in the last few years because my priorities have just been all over the place. And I think I needed to step back from blog writing. But I wrote a few blogs that got the attention of colleagues in tech, but also triathletes, about the changes my body was going through. And it all kicked off around the time when my mom passed away as well. I thought, oh, it's just stress. And then here I hit the stage called perimenopause, where my body doesn't respond. I sweat all the time at random times and weird things are happening to me. And I think taking the step back of what happens, women have more changes in their bodies than men do. And a lot of the sport in triathlon is geared towards men. And then when it comes to training women, they're just like, oh, do what the men do, but less. And there's a woman named Stacy Sims who's written a couple books on this, and anyone that's out there that's female or even male and want to help your female colleagues, friends, wives, partners, it's called Roar by Stacy Sims, and she has another one about menopause. And of course, my menopause brain won't remember the name of it. But if you Google Stacy Sims, she put a lot of light into how to help women in this space, and she's done a lot of research in it because there's very little research in that space. And so, leveraging my privilege in my job and my blog, I started blogging about health, and I need to blog more because I have more updates for people that they want to hear about. But as your body changes as a woman, like, men don't understand. Like, most women have babies. I've not had a child. But your everything changes. A lot of my friends that have had kids talk about their blood changing. They feel different. And their body doesn't let them train. And I think we just don't talk about it enough. And I'm very fortunate. My coach is very knowledgeable. And when I say I'm having a menopause day, I don't have to go into too much detail, but he knows what I mean. But I can also leverage the menopause symptoms to harness my anger, my frustration, and the mental state you get into, to leverage that. I'll call it anger, because menopause anger is a real thing, into something positive that really helps you focus. And in a time in your life when your brain doesn't want to focus because of the brain fog. So I've been really fortunate to have a platform to speak about these things, but so many people have come up to me and go, you've helped my wife, partner, girlfriend, or women have come up and go, oh my gosh, this is great. Thank you. Because we don't talk about it a lot. but it does impact the day to day.
And even taking it back, you know, and for female athletes, you know, having to deal with menstrual cycle, even, you know, from 1 month to the next, it's okay for me sitting here as a man, planning my training, planning my next event. I don't have to worry about my body not showing up on the day, but it's a very, very real thing for someone, particularly a female athlete who's maybe invested a lot of money, to turn up, to pay that money, to go abroad, to go to an Ironman event, and lo and behold, time of the month lands, and it's game over potentially, or certainly things have had to take a massive, massive change in direction. So there are big issues that we probably do need to highlight. I'm probably not the best person to be doing that, but certainly people like you and other athletes like you have. I spoke with Anne-Marie McGlynn previously on the podcast, who's a fantastic marathon runner, and she was talking about the women's issues, the health issues, the menstrual cycle, the menopause, and I guess it's about time, blokes. I mean, we need to get a wee bit more comfortable talking about it and being there and empathizing with our female club mates.
Yeah, and it's Stacey's book Roar is a great starting point for anyone that is still in that place in their life, because she talks about how to train to your cycle. And it's an adjustment and it's a change. And I started doing that for years, and it made a huge difference in understanding how your body feels. So take the Garmin's, take your devices out of it. Just being able to track your cycles and train to that made a huge difference in how I responded. And then her next book about menopause is really beneficial. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't have the perfect answer. Every human is different. And I think as a man too, by talking about it, we make you more empathetic, because you just sit there and go, she's grumpy, she's cranky. And, you know, you could sit there and the guys will make comments about, oh, my lady's angry today. She's always angry. Well, why is she always angry? I can tell you why I'm always angry, because it's menopause. So I'm learning to cope with it. I'm learning to talk about it. I'm learning how to address it. And if I can leverage that anger, for me, I can tell people listening, I have the privilege to work from home. So I like training in the mornings, but if I'm having an angry day, like literally someone breathes in my direction and I want to set them on fire, I go get on the bike for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And I just know that some days, even though I have a plan, and that's getting up, getting on the bike, I save it for like mid-morning or lunchtime. And if sometimes I just can't get on the bike in the morning because I'm angry, which sounds ridiculous, but I wait, and then I'm like, right, I've hit that point. I'm going to step away from work. I'm going to go get on the bike for an hour, because I will be a better human after that hour than if I sit here and try to just work through this or calm down or breathe or meditate. I just need to go get it out. I come back, I sit down, I take 5 minutes to gather myself, organize my thoughts, and I'm a much better human after that. So I think it's knowing your own superpowers and how to leverage those intricacies in female health to really benefit your training.
Is there, and I ask this question quite tentatively, so feel free to bite my head off if it's inappropriate, but is there an opportunity for you to be able to harness this newfound anger, as you call it, when it comes to race day? Are you able to tap into the aggression and go, well, fuck you, I'm coming after you, you know what I mean? Like,
yes. I become a very thrashy swimmer. I get very angry I get very intense, but yes, you can harness it. And one of the things I had to do, I actually am reading a book about anger, but the book makes me more angry. But there's a guy named,
it does exactly what
David
it says
Goggins.
on the tin.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm more angry now. But there's a guy named David Goggins who talks about harnessing your anger, and he does ultra marathons. And, you know, he talks about the short stick growing up that he got, his rough life, all these things. We all have something. Like, nobody has a perfect life. It may look perfect on the outside. That's crap. So yeah, I will take that anger on race day and just narrow it and go, right, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I think for me, that's a lot shorter. That's a lot easier in the shorter distance races, such as the Olympic and the sprint distances. And easily on those days, I will take caffeine. I will get fired the heck up, and I will just launch on those days, because I can go max heart rate on those. So I think, yes, I am. And there's some good sessions where I've worn myself out, because I'm like, I was angry and I was fueled. I nailed all the the watts that my coach put into the session, and I'm like, I'm just gonna, and rail through it. Okay, great. Sometimes I do it in the pool, which is not always great if there's other people around you, so that's a harder one. But yeah.
Good stuff. It's very interesting. It really is very interesting, and thanks for sharing it. And I know I'm maybe as a social worker, I work with a lot of females, and I'm okay talking about things. And there's very, very few subjects that I haven't been involved in having some sort of conversation about. So, but thank you for that. Perhaps we'll put a wee link to your blogs and stuff for anybody that maybe wants to have a wee read through those in the description. But tell me this, April, what does the rest of this year look like for you? Have we any big events or any plans for 2026?
I think right now it's healing. So I had knee surgery in August last year to take out part of my meniscus. The orthopedic surgeon's one of the best in the UK. And he said, yeah, we'll just take that bit out. I'm like, do I not need that? And he goes, no. Okay. So I'm encroaching about 6 months. I'm 5.5 months out. I'm not where I thought I would be. So I think patience is the word of the year. I am on the bike. I am swimming and I am running. To make myself feel better, I bought myself a new bike and I've signed up for Wales, Swansea 70.3. And
Cool.
I've also signed up for a 10K swim somewhere in the Lake District in June, the month before. So I'm tempered back a little bit. I would love to do some duathlons and shorter races around the country, but I need my knee to be able to run continuously without problem, which I'm not there yet. So I'm being patient, and I'm honestly hoping by, if I could say April time or May time, be continuously running a 10K, that would be ideal. So that's my goal. So right now, half Ironman in July, and that's my big race.
A half Ironman in July will bring your tally of half Ironmans to 19. And you've completed 5 full distance Ironman events. That is phenomenal. What would happen if someone said something stupid to you, like you can't finish on an odd number? Would that kind of make you want to go and get a 6th Ironman, would it? Or does these types of things have to happen?
What is it, 10 or 12? You're in the legacy program and you get a ticket to Kona. I would love a 6th Ironman. I don't have a location chosen out, and I need to conquer the run. But until my body's at the other thing with an Ironman that I think is also pretty clear, you need to dedicate a lot of time for it. And with my job today, I can't do that. A half Ironman is going to be hard for me because I travel quite a bit with my job and work weird hours. But I feel you can have a life with a half Ironman. So I think for now, the half Ironman's there. If I can get stronger, I think an Ironman would be in my near future.
April, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast. It's been a blast meeting you, talking to you. Some great advice there and some top tips for all the female athletes. All I want to say is continued health, good luck with your recovery, and best wishes for the rest of the year.
Thanks for having me.